Oh, baby. The 49ers are 4-0. One of just two teams in the NFL to be undefeated to this point. That's right. The vaunted Miami Dolphins fell today. We're going to talk about what happened around the league, but we're also going to talk about the San Francisco 49ers, what went well today. We're going to get a little nitpicky on some things that we want to see improve for sure. But man, what a showing by the San Francisco 49ers overall. There's a lot to talk about, and David and I are going to talk about it all next. All right, welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And as I said, it is the post-game rant with my guy, David. David, how you doing, my man?
Oh, it was a great game. I know we're going to talk defense, but I got to say, offense has been the engine of this team. Nothing changed, and probably one of the best games the 49ers have ever played under Kyle Shanahan on offense. We'll get into the details later.
Yeah, for sure. Are you drinking a Bloody Mary? Is that what you're drinking?
My wife is the greatest human on the planet. Okay. We've got shrimp, we've got olives. We had bacon, already ate it.
Okay.
We have the pickles. We've got tahini on the top. I mean, yeah, it's professional grade.
I mean, hashtag every inch matters. All right. Well, the 49ers by the numbers.
I mean,
there's some good things here to talk about. So, first of all, CMC became the first 49er to start a season, first 4 games with at least 100 yards and a touchdown in each of his first 4 games. I thought that was a crazy stat. The 49ers gave up their first 99-yard touchdown drive in 21 years in today's game. And Brock Purdy completed his first 13 passes and, in fact, only had 1 incompletion today. More touchdowns, and I was flaunting this stat for Josh Allen today. Josh Allen had 4 incompletions and 5 touchdowns, had more touchdowns in total than he had incomplete passes. He had 1 incomplete pass. He had 1 passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown there at the end. And the 49ers did what the 49ers have been doing all season long, which is winning and putting up more than 30 points. So of all the things that I just kind of threw out there against the wall to see what would stick, what stood out to you today, David?
I mean, offensively, I think that Brock Purdy started off with Sanchez talking about the ultimate point guard. He called him Jason Kidd or Steve Nash. I think there was a reference there at the beginning. And to be honest, I think that a lot of us really look at him as up to this point and throughout the years, like he is sort of that Kyle Shanahan game manager guy that he trusts. But I will say this: 30 for 31. I think I'm right. Was it 30 for 31 or 20
for 21?
Yeah, 20 for 21. What stood out to me as well, though, is that the protection was there, and when it was there, he felt very content pushing the ball down the field. I want to say it was 3 to Ayuk, to Ayuk in a way that never felt like it was floating. Always felt like he was kind of hitting him when he was in stride. Obviously schemed open, but he feels the elbow looks fine. But the timing throws, the precision and the accuracy and ball placement today was there, and that was something I was very much quibbling about against the Rams and the Giants early on in that first half. And to me, he really put those concerns to bed. But yeah, it's also the CMC show, right? Like the CMC, to me, and I know we could talk about this, I feel like I feel he's the MVP right now of the league. And I know there's some stiff competition with some quarterbacks out there, some other guys that are really, having some great seasons. But when you talk about most valuable to this team, I don't think this offense doesn't run like it does without him. And he's taking volume. He's issuing punishment to defenders. He's out of the backfield. It was a impeccable job of the 49ers offense today, outside of one drive where they had a penalty and a sack.
Yeah, definitely. Can you do me a favor? Will you mute your phone? Because I'm hearing it going. You're getting blown up. But okay, so we're going to talk about CMC. We have a topic on CMC, but let's talk about Brandon Ayuk for a minute. The offense last week started out a little bit slow and then picked up in the second half. This week, I mean, it was right from go. And I mean, Brandon Ayuk is just, he's really freaking good, man. I don't have the list in front of me, but just the eye test tells me this man is a top 10 wide receiver right now. His route running is incredible. He's always getting open. He makes everything downfield look so damn easy. His catch radius is out of control. He's just a really, really good football player. Again, I'm not going to hold you to this. I'd have to look at the list myself. Like I said, I just get the feeling by watching him, he's a top 10 receiver in this league. Do you get that feeling as well?
Yes. And I've long said, I said for the last 2 years, and I think I remember Javi Vega and I were talking about this a lot, and people are like, oh, there's no way he's in the conversation with CD Lamb. Oh, there's no way. I mean, I'm telling you right now, here, we are talking about what we saw in the game. Box score this, though. Okay. George Kittle, 1 target, 1 receiver, 9 yards. You know how many targets Debo had?
0.
Yeah. Okay. The 49ers averaged 9 yards a play without targeting, basically not targeting Kittle or Debo at all.
Right.
Ayuk targeted 6 times, 6 receptions, 148 yards, 25 yards a catch. It's not slander to say this, but it is clear that Brandon Ayuk is the best receiver on this team. And it's not really particularly close. It's not. Debo is a weapon, but there were times today that Debo, if I were to quibble, like kind of on this running opportunities where it's like looking to kind of dance and not get upfield. Like Kyle showed you. I mean, I know Debo was banged up, but Ayuk he's just a beast, and he can hurt you over the middle. He can hurt you deep. He can hurt you in the flat. He can hurt you out of the backfield. They've never done that for him, but he can do that. He was a great returner. He has that ability. I think Kyle will take that out of his bag of tricks before too long. But the connection between Purdy and Ayuk right now is clear. It's clear that he's his favorite, his favorite. And I think that was something people were worried about. They're like, okay, is he only going to go to drop it enough to CMC, or is he only going to like feel comfortable with Debo out of the line of scrimmage? And it's clear that he loves throwing it to Ayuk. So it's just, you love to see it, man.
Ayuk is really, really good.
He is good.
NorCal Dan says, I played junior college baseball where Ayuk played junior college football in Rockland, NorCal. What a dog. Exactly. And that's the other thing too. Unlike a lot of these other receivers that we're talking about or would be comparing him to when you get into the top 10, he's a fantastic and willing blocker. That's the other thing. A willing blocker. He is the guy who's springing guys like Debo and CMC loose downfield. Brandon Ayuk is a complete ball player. It is clear that outside of CMC, he is the number one go-to guy on this team. And I think he should be. I think he's earned that to this point in the season.
And you saw last week when he was out, this offense didn't completely falter. Debo showed up in a big way too. But that level of, I would say stretch the field. I don't talk about like a typical speed threat, but he does. He creates space in the field that everybody has to appreciate. I know that Shanahan really, we see Debo being a yak guy, but a lot of that yak is really, really proximal to the line of scrimmage, those bubble screens, those things like that. Ayuk, he's just the guy that Shanahan, you can tell, loves scheming open in space down the field. And you don't usually see that depth of target for Debo. So yeah, this team, that game is going to be special, AW, and this offense is special. It is special. And it's going to be I think it's the game of the year. I think Dallas and the Niners next week's game of the year.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very good game, no doubt about it. We touched on the CMC topic, but let's really get into it. First of all, do you think CMC's let's start with the 49ers first. Do you think CMC is the clear MVP of this team? Or do you think that there's anybody else that has an argument at this point?
Offensively?
Just the whole team. Let's go the whole team right now. Yeah.
So I'm going to go on the other side of the ball because I think that I've tweeted this out multiple times in the last several weeks. Javon Hargrave, to me, has been the best player on that defense. He was the best player on the field today on defense. getting pressure. Just you don't see it happen all the time because when you're watching the game on the sideline view, you don't always get to see exactly what he does to wreak havoc and put that pressure on completely. Without Hargrave, it used to be, I thought, okay, that's a luxury signing. That's an amazing signing. This has looked like an essential signing for the 49ers defense. And so to me, that would be the guy. But on top of Ayuk having, the season he's having, we could talk up other players, but MVP, I don't think there's really another conversation, to be quite honest. We could talk about other players that are unsung, but guys who are most valuable to the team, with the volume he gets, the snap counts he gets, it's hard for me to go anywhere else.
Yeah, he's just, I agree. I think if CMC's the MVP of this team, it's not close. I do like the Hargrave shout out. I always love finding a way to sneak in other players that are doing good things. But yes, right now, CMC is the MVP of the offense, or excuse me, MVP of the team. I don't think it's particularly close, but is he the best non-quarterback in the NFL? And the reason that I position it this way, no, it's almost impossible for a non-quarterback to win MVP. It rarely happens. And when it does, you have to have an absolute special season. AP, I think, was the last one to do it, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it was 2012-ish, something like that. But CMC is doing some incredible things. So taking quarterbacks out of it, running backs, receivers, tight ends, I mean, however you want to look at this, is CMC the best non-quarterback in the NFL right now, in your opinion?
I mean, that's the thing that you quibble on, right? How do you define? People talk about this. What's the definition of most valuable or best? And I think typically most valuable player usually goes to what people think is the best player. Best non-quarterback, that is a big in the weeds conversation. I mean, he's right there. I think that typically because MVP tends to be an offensive player, I do think that Christian McCaffrey, and here's why. Even with that box, I think what he had like 7 catches today for 70, 80 yards. He could have had more. I think what makes CMC special is the ability to line him up outside and have DBs actually fear him as a route runner. A guy that they also fear that he's not just one of these little delicate dudes that's going to sit there and like not put a shoulder into you. He hurts you everywhere. And I think for a team like Kyle Shanahan's offense, I think it'd be hard not to say it. I always go back on the defensive side of the ball, though. You guys got like Micah Parsons. I didn't watch the Cowboys-Pats game today because I'm watching this one, but I got a feeling the D over there it looks like they let the Pats have it pretty good. There's a guy I fear a lot in Micah Parsons. Justin Jefferson, as a Minnesota guy, I'm not sure what he did on the field today either, but he's been getting his. I think CMC deserves it. I think CMC, people are afraid to say that a running back is the best player, but I don't really look at him as just a pure running back. I look at him as the premier offensive weapon in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he is. I mean, there's really not much that this guy can't do. It's just, he's so damn good, man. He is so damn good, and he's unstoppable. You watch all 22 and you just see that players gravitate towards him, and yet he still makes these incredible plays. Or if he's not making the play, he's the reason that the play on the back end is being made because defenders are just going to him like a magnet. He is so dang good. I struggled to think right in this moment, who is a better offensive football player in the league than CMC? I mean, he does everything. He literally does everything. It's hard to pick somebody other than him.
Yeah, no, and I think the conversation's short. I mean, it's and right now, if you look at the best team, I guess maybe if you went over to Philadelphia, but I feel like as far as you said, non-quarterback, I got to say, watch Devontae Smith play today, and that kid is like, I had reservations about his size. I know it's Niners, but boy, that guy's a dog too. I mean, but
there's some good football players in the league for sure. Sure, there's some good football players, and I think the players that I think would come to mind that maybe you could even throw in the conversation. I think a lot of people would say like Justin Jefferson.
Yep.
Okay, I understand that. I mean, Tyreek Hill, yes, of course. But running back wise, I think like CMC is here right now. and everybody else is way behind him. So I think from the running back position, he's got that concrete locked in. It's really just a couple wide receivers that you say, okay, but they just don't affect the game as much because they don't touch the ball 20 plus times in a game, and CMC does.
And most of his runs, or a lion's share of his runs, are between the tackles. I think people felt like before he came to the Niners, like he was almost gadgety in a way, because he caught the ball so much. But he is a guy you can actually count on to get tough yards. And so that's a whole other layer that I think people don't respect. I mean, the league does, but I think some fans might not. But yeah, my only fear again is that I hope the volume, I don't mind the volume right now, because he can take it. And his injuries in the past have not been, knee joints, knees, bones, things like that, just soft tissue. But I hope they don't have to use them as much as they are throughout the season, and hope some other guys can step up.
Yeah, most certainly. Elijah Mitchell can't stay healthy still. I mean, it's crazy. This guy touches the ball once and it's like he gets injured. I think Mason played well today. He came right in. First play that he was in, got a catch. We saw that. We saw that during training camp. I mean, he was targeted quite a bit. He was actually a pretty dang good route runner. I think I made note of that a couple times throughout training camp. And we know that he runs hard. Certainly he's no CMC by any means, but he's good enough to play. Right.
Well, and that play over the middle, that was a CMC. I think Sanchez talked about right when it happened. It was like, that's a CMC route. Like, that's something that Kyle just, screw it, we're going to run this. And he did a nice job. And actually, I thought Brock at first was like, oh, that's bad. But giving it right to him, like, kind of like where he could settle down instead of leading him, did not lead him into that crashing defender. And he was able to adjust to that. And just his ball security, that's what I'm kind of paying attention to, because I knew he had a couple of issues with that in some preseason stuff in training camp. But and that's might be why Kyle too is a little reluctant to kind of really RBC to a degree when they're up a lot. But hopefully we can get some bigger leads, and hopefully we get some more trust in these guys, because I think CMC is going to need to be spelled before too long.
Yeah, most certainly. Joey Mellon says Ertz and AZ almost destroyed the spread. This is why I can't bet. By the way, this is why I cannot bet. You saw the weirdness at the end of the Rams game, taking the 3. Ertz in Arizona almost destroyed the spread again. You just can't control it. It's so dang tough.
I just lost fantasy by 0.2 points because of the last drive of the Cardinals, because I was playing the Niners defense. I think they had a grand total of like minus 0.4 points today. Nice job, guys. Nice job.
Yeah. Brother Bob says game of the year is Niners and Philly. Book it. We'll see. I mean, we'll see. Philly has to keep winning. They did win today, one of only 2 undefeated teams, although it wasn't near as impressive as probably they would want, but they're winning, and that's all that matters. This is the other thing that I think we're starting to figure out. It's not easy to win week in and week out in the NFL. And even if teams aren't winning by a lot, or a game is a little bit closer, like, oh, I don't know if Arizona should have stuck around the way they did, or I don't know if the Giants and Rams should have stuck around the way they did. Games are hard to win in the NFL, and the 49ers are dominating for the most part in these games. Philly is showing that even at 4-0, it's hard to win in the NFL. So you take a win how you can get it. Brother Bob says, I want us to trade for Surtain or some cornerback weakness. We're going to talk about that in a second, actually. Not Surtain, but just overall some weaknesses. Jamaican Boy says, hey, Jesse, I finally caught a live. Question, is CMC really strong-arming Kyle to make incentives? Even the broadcaster said, give someone else the ball. I don't know what's written into his contract, so I'm not going to say that. But what I will say is I did make an observation after week 1 being in Pittsburgh to watch the game. CMC has autonomy to decide when he wants to play and when he doesn't. There was multiple times they tried to bring him out of the game, and he's like, nope. He waves off Mitchell, or Mitchell's in there. It looks like they're going to shut him down, and he's like, oh, 3rd down, I'm coming in. So, he wants to play. He's a football player. I don't know if it's incentive driven or what have you, but he certainly wants to play if they're going to allow him.
If that were the case, they also would have given him his 5th touchdown at the end. Instead, they give it to Juice twice fruitlessly, and then Brock got in there for the final QB sneak. So yeah, I think that's an interesting comment. But yeah, I think it's just more like what you said, Jesse, that autonomy to have that snap count go through how he feels, and I think Kyle trusts that. And this is the thing: CMC had a couple of these earlier on in his career. Aside from being that soft tissue, he actually has been a lot more durable than a lot of people have given him credit for. And I think it's shown just with the hits that he takes and the issues. He looks like he's clearly in the best shape of his life, and I don't think there's any concerns that way right now. And they kind of needed him, you know. Like I don't know what this offense looks like if it's truly like alternating drives like some teams do. I mean, does this offense get 8 yards of play? I don't know about that.
Yeah, he looks physically bigger than he did last year. Like he looks physically stronger. So, you know, it's not that he's not built necessarily to take it, but he's a running back at 27 years old. That's kind of when you start to see the decline. I would love to get any miles off of him that they can, not only for this year, but so that hopefully he can be this productive again next year. I mean, it would be nice to try to make a run yet again. So, but good hearing from you, Jamaican boy. It's been a while, man. Mike Monahan says our D-line seemed really slow off the snap. I didn't really pay attention to it or catch that, Mike, but there is something that we're going to talk about, and a couple of you guys brought it up, and that's just room for improvement. So, you know what? I'll let you go first, David. What is one thing that stands out to you as like an area of improvement or an area of opportunity that you saw from today's game? It's hard to do this in a win, right? Like the 49ers won, they're 4-0. I don't want to sound nitpicky, but there were some things I was like, okay, like just not that I'm worried, but like just keep an eye on it as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think people get addicted to PFF a little bit with trusting their pressure grades. By the way, PFF calls, you know, a lot of things a pressure that I don't know if I would consider a pressure, right? And what I mean by that is like, did it really have the potential to disrupt a play? You know, and I know that's just a win rate, things like that. But you got to remember, offenses sometimes will have these plays where. So are the 49ers getting as much pressure as PFF says they are? I think it's closer to that than people maybe see as far as they say getting off the line. I don't know if that was the problem, but yeah, it'd be nice to see them get home a little bit more. But the offenses are expecting that. I would say nitpicky Cleveland Ferrell today, multiple times crashing in and not containing. And when you have a quarterback that has mobility like Dobbs, that's an issue. And which is a big reason why I know people call him for Surtain. I have too. But this idea that having another guy that you can really trust opposite Bosa would be, I think it's going to be essential for one of those guys to really step up as the season goes on. The big thing to me is their bugaboo about you have Mooney Ward on the outside, and then you have to have had Demo Lenore on the outside because you have such a liability inside with Isaiah Oliver. And because Isaiah Oliver has played so poorly, they've had to bring Lenore inside, which he's completely capable of doing and has done a great job of. But then you have to have Ambry Thomas on the outside, and that's been a disaster. And so because of Oliver, and look, you get nitpicky, Steve Wilkes, this is soapbox a little bit. These coaches have their guys, and Isaiah, I'm not saying he said Isaiah Oliver is like a defensive MVP candidate kind of thing, but he vouched for Oliver, and Oliver's been dog water. And so when you bring Oliver in and have to put a position where you already know Ambry is not that guy on the outside, and if not for that, there's that big drive where Michael Wilson's in the end zone was all on Ambry, and then also a propensity to send pressure with Fred Warner. There was one play where Fred got hung up a little bit on a longer play, but aside from that, he was going stride for stride down the field with Hollywood Brown. You know, like him clogging up the middle is huge. And so sending Fred up the middle, and Fred never got pressure in those situations. That to me, it needs to be mitigated. They can get pressure with force. So that's my big thing. Because if Oliver's going to struggle over the middle, the last thing you can do is bring Fred out of the middle, in my humble opinion. But that's the bugaboo, though. They couldn't get off third down. There was a time where the Cardinals were 9 of 14. I think got up to 10 of 15 on third and fourth down. You do that against the Cowboys, you're going to lose.
Yeah, it's very, very possible. There was actually five things that stood out to me. One of them, which I knew, and this is nobody can stop this in the league, but you saw it from like a mini version of the Philadelphia Eagles. You get that tush push play coming, and there's nothing that the 49ers, nobody's going to stop it when the Eagles do it, but we know now for a fact that the 49ers also aren't going to stop it. So when that game comes around and the Eagles need short yardage, they're always going to get a first down. Like, we now know that. Like, not that there was any doubt, but we know. Okay. So that's something that we're gonna have to remember when Philly comes around. Luckily, not many teams do it, and no team does it to the level that they do it. So you really only have to worry about it once in the regular season and maybe in the playoffs as well. But a couple things that stood out to me: McKivitz gave up a sack that took points off the board. So McKivitz is a guy who's been struggling really all year. This is the third time that I can remember that a defensive edge rusher was chipped and by somebody else. McKivitz was able to get fully in his stance and wait for the player to come to him and completely whiffed and gave up a sack or a pressure. It's happening way too often. It's crazy to me that a player can have that much of an advantage on the edge rusher and still lose poorly. Yeah. So that's something that stood out. Another thing that stood out to me, Ambry Thomas, you talked about it. He was picked on. As soon as he came on the field, it was like, oh, here we go. We're going straight at Ambry Thomas. They took the deep shot down the sideline, which the receiver took the inside release. I think it was Hollywood Brown. Ended up being an incompletion. They went right back to it and completed it. Then they got a touchdown right after that. Ambry Thomas on the field. Teams are going to pick on him, and deservedly so. Obviously, mobile quarterback in Dobbs. This is the first, I think, this isn't the first mobile quarterback they played because they did play Danny Dimes, but Danny Dimes had no weapons and just wasn't, the offensive line was banged up. Really, he was the only thing that the 49ers had to contain and focus on. With Dobbs, he is playing very efficient football. He has a couple other weapons around him, enough to at least make you think, and he was able to get loose. I mean, that 99-yard drive, he was freezing the 49ers. We were texting back and forth. I'm like, man, he's got them just frozen right now. There's nothing they can do about it. And then the last thing that I want to say is the special teams. This is now the second time that Moody has kicked the ball out of bounds. So I don't know if he should be kicking. Is it his third time?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Yep. I remember two for sure. I don't know that he should be kicking off. Mitch Wishnowsky did it week 1. Actually, week 1 and 2 and was fine. So maybe, just maybe, Mitch Wishnowsky should be, or excuse me, he did it week 1 only. Maybe he should be the one that's kicking the ball off. We can't have a situation where it's a tight game and this guy kicks it out of bounds and now the offense is starting at the 40-yard line. And then they had the 4th down fake punt. So special teams, not necessarily their best showing. There was some good things on special teams. Obviously, Moody was money again from the field goals. And then, I think the return game's fine for the most part, but just a couple things to point out. Is there anything that you want to add or kind of take away from what I just said?
Yeah, no, I think you're on. And I think just the comment that all defenses struggle with mobile quarterbacks. I mean, yeah, but we're talking about the 49ers. I mean, I'm not saying that it was I don't think that's actually what was the death knell for this team. But that being said, that you have to be more disciplined. There were several times where Josh Dobbs had a free run because there were on play action or on a threat of run. When you're a defensive end, and let's say you're the right end, and you've got a running play that's going to the opposite side, and you're crashing up, and then you're going left, you're not getting that guy. If that play is beyond you, and I love the hustle, but your job is to contain. And Shanahan does this all the time with Brock and other players, right? That play action fake, and Dobbs bootlegged out. There were several plays where Furrow was just completely lost on that situation, and those are huge plays. Those were 2 of the plays that contributed to their 10 of 15 on 3rd and 4th down at one point, right? So I just think that there are ways to mitigate that. But no, I think everything else was spot on. My big concern, like I said, is if you're not getting pressure right away, they're going to continue to pick on the outside if you move Demo in, and they've got to figure something else out than Isaiah Oliver because it's just not working.
Yeah, most certainly. I think at least early on, one thing that we're finding out, we talked about it earlier throughout the offseason. I know that you've heard me talk about it. We've talked about it early in this season that the 49ers really actually this conversation, the first time it came up, David, in my mind, was on a post-game show heading into the playoffs last year. We actually talked about it, how the 49ers offense, it seems to be leaning more towards an offensive team than a defensive team, which is crazy to say at the time. But I think even more like as the weeks go, we're starting to see that. Not that the defense is bad by any means. I'm not trying to paint that picture, but the offense is really what's pushing this team right now. I think we are seeing chinks in the armor on defense. And now maybe they can rectify some of those things during the trade deadline. But certainly outside of, Demo on the outside, actually not Demo, excuse me, Ward on the outside. Even when Demo's on the outside, he's given a ton of cushion. Those they can complete passes at will on the left side of the defense. If they want to get 5 yards at a time, it's there every time, regardless of who's there. And then if Ambry's out there, it's like, well, we can do whatever the hell we want, really. We don't just have to complete short passes. So, and the 49ers still, by the way, the 49ers still have not played an elite wide receiver. And these things are happening. These things are happening with guys like Puka Nacua and Hollywood Brown, who's, pretty good. The other kid today, I forget his name. He torched the 49ers. Wilson, I think his name is.
Mike Wilson. Mike Wilson.
Yeah. Mike Wilson. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yes. So the point is they haven't even played an elite wide receiver. So when they do, you can see where this can start to be a problem. This was the first game, David, where they actually gave up a couple deep passes for the first time this season. But this is also the first game that legitimately they've played against receivers that are kind of deep threats, really.
Well, and I think this is a game where you got next week. I know we're going to talk about next week, but the Cowboys took it to the Patriots today and recovered well after getting embarrassed in Arizona. And so, to be fair, on that common opponent, the Niners did. The big thing was getting off the field in third and fourth down. The Cardinals didn't really average that many yards per play. They just could not get off the field. But this is the thing. I think I was talking to my dad about this before. Like, moving the chains is part of football. So, like, just because you're not giving up big plays doesn't mean you're playing great defense either. So the idea that you've got to be able to get to, and then so the offense, like you said, is the engine. We talked about this last year before the playoffs. They didn't falter. The only drive when you talk about McKivitz taking that causing that sack that took him out of the field goal range. That was it. I think, was that the only time the Niners punted the entire game?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, so the Niners offense answered the bell every single time. The defense, and we talked about the drive before the half was an 80+ yard drive. The drive after halftime, 99-yard drive. Like, those things can't happen. They just can't. When your punter, the fourth round punter, MVP Mitch Wishnowsky puts it on the 1 yard line. Kendall Sheffield, the practice squad call up or whatever it was, the sign gets you. Yeah. I mean, those are the kind of things that are backbreaking. And I just fear that, like you said, they haven't played an elite receiver yet. They get CeeDee Lamb next week. You're going to go, you're going to be getting Jamar Chase in a couple weeks. You're going to be playing. Hey, I know the Vikings.
They can't even move the. They can't even.
No, the Bengals are garbage. But yeah, I know we're going to bash Joe Burrow later. But hey, I know the Vikings are. It's fun to make fun of them because their defense is horrible. But Justin Jefferson on the road in a loud stadium on Monday night in about 3 weeks too. So they're going to see some. They're going to see the best the league has to offer pretty quick.
For sure. And I'm going to address Kingston and MK Dubs here. Kingston says, every team has problems. What the hell are you guys talking about? And then MK Dubs says, why so much negativity from the jump? We're 4-0 scoring 30. Brother, you haven't been here for the first 28 minutes of the show, clearly, because that's exactly what we talked about. And then we also made a statement saying, hey, we're not acting like let's hit the panic button or anything, but let's talk about some things that we're seeing in this game and really throughout the season that potentially could be issues. And absolutely, if this was a all NFL channel and we wanted to go team by team, I can find you an issue on every single team. There is not a perfect team in the NFL, including the 49ers, but this is a 49er channel. So we're going to talk about the deficiencies of the 49ers potentially, not other teams. So
and what I don't understand is, like I said, 30 minutes straight of just love fest. And the idea when we were looking, the question was that hypothetical devil's advocacy of saying, if you're going to quibble, what are you going to quibble about? Like, again, can we just, there's 32 teams in the league. One team wins it. So with a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, you're not the Cardinals. They don't. So Jonathan Gannon, by the way, bad teams and unserious coaches go for it on 4th and 2 from their own 18-yard line, right? That team isn't really trying to win that game that way, right? They're just like house money. This team, the Niners aren't a house money team. So when you look at those things, you're going to go up and play the Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles. You're going to go into the AFC, and whoever you face the Super Bowl, it's what it's going to be. The Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs. Like those little things that we look at that you're actually quibbling about are going to be magnified as the season goes on. And like you said, nobody said the sky is falling, but if you felt that the defense played great today, raise your hand. I mean, honestly, like let's be real here, guys. Like there are individual players, but like they need to tighten that up because the offense is answering the bell, and it'd be nice to see the defense kind of respond in kind. But
yeah, most certainly, no doubt about it. And the offense absolutely killed it today. It was almost a perfect game from the offense. It really outside of the McKivitz allowing the sack. Like that's it. They would have never punted. They would have scored on every single drive. Like it's absolutely incredible. The offense is killing it right now.
The only other incompletion, the only pretty incompletion they had is 3rd and 24. Kyle calls a timeout because he doesn't want 3rd and 20. Like you're really going to convert that. Calls the timeout. The next play, there was pressure, and he wasn't going to be able to complete that. Like that was the only incompletion on 3rd and 24. I think that tells you a lot about this offense. And I think that's where I feel like everybody's always said, hey, this is an elite defense. Let's start playing like it.
Hold on a second. This guy wants attention, so I'm going to give it to him. Everybody, this is another content creator. He clearly wants attention. Go, you know what? Go subscribe to his channel. Go watch his channel. I'm sure he puts out fantastic stuff. He wants the attention, so we'll give it to him. Give him some love. 49er Sports Talk in the building. The best content creator we've never heard of. Congratulations, buddy.
I raised my hand, baby. There you go. Did it make you feel better? Okay.
Weirdo, dude. All right. Let's get to these super chats real quick. Flav says, I really think if Debo ends up having a good year, trading him is the best thing for this team. Okay, I'm listening. He just isn't built for the longevity in the NFL, and unless CMC is injured, his value is diminished. I'd sell high. Flav, I think you bring up an interesting point here because we talked about it last year. Like, is it a little bit of redundancy with CMC and Debo? And if the 49ers knew, in hindsight, if they knew that they were going to be able to get CMC last year, do you think that they would have extended Debo Samuel? Maybe they would have, or maybe they would have traded him. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. But one way or another, I mean, there definitely is some redundancy there. But Debo is so good. And also, I don't know if his contract honestly allows for him to be traded. I think the cap hit is way too much. I think you're out on Debo is after the 2024 season, if I'm not mistaken, Flav.
They could make it work on a post June 1st, but it would still result. I mean, it would result in cap savings, but you'd still have a dead money hit that's not great. And look, like you said, I also am not convinced Debo is Debo in every system. And I think that you said, like last week, people were always like, oh, see, this Debo is not redundant with CMC because he was, well, Ayuk also wasn't playing. And I don't take this wrong, because I actually think Flav's onto something. Like I said this before, Ayuk is by far their best receiver. Debo was on the field a lot today, and you didn't see him targeted at all down. In fact, he wasn't targeted at all. He didn't get a target. And the only other thing they manufactured from were 2 plays, and I think he grand totaled 2 yards on 2 carries. Okay. That doesn't mean he's not going to show up, and he will show up. And I think he's banged up. I think that's great. But going forward, yeah, they're going to have some decisions to make. And I think that there are teams that know that they can use him. And I don't know if this makes sense to give Ayuk the extension which he deserves and be able to have a contract that's palatable with Debo side by side, which is why I thought the contract they gave Debo last year was a little rich. But again, we're quibbling. And so I know people are going to say we're being negative. So it's a good problem to have. But I actually think Flav is right. And I think that good teams do sell high. And here's another thing I've said. I feel like receiver is the new running back in the draft. I'm not saying you replace them, but you've been able to see guys come into the league at a ridiculous clip throughout the league that you can have replacements. I'm not saying you replace Debo, but Debo the longevity, the injury issues. He's gonna be getting up there. He was brought in the league in 20. I mean, you could replace it, and I don't know if they're gonna be. I think Ayuk has completely earned the contract. I don't know if Ayuk has to do a whole lot more. You can see what
Ayuk's earned the contract. Yeah, that's for sure. So to Flav's point and to what you talked about, actually they could trade him post June 1 next year. They would save $22 million if they do so and only take a dead cap hit of $6.65 million, which would be spread out over 2 years. So really you're taking a dead cap hit 2 years in a row of like $3.75 million. The next year you can do basically the exact same thing. So even if they wanted to keep him next year and then make that move the year following, you could do it then as well. So I don't know. I love having Debo on this team. I mean, certainly if CMC goes down, then you really do need a player like Debo. And that's what makes this really, really tough. It's not like Debo and CMC are similar from the standpoint that they're both like 27-ish. They play they're playing physical brands of football, or one's playing a physical position, a running back. Debo plays a physical brand. You could see the bottom falling out at any point.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, it's not redundant if one of them goes down all of a sudden. And that's what makes it really, really hard.
But that's why his contract right now, this team, it's better to have him right now. And he was banged up, by the way. He was battling the ribs and the knee. I don't know what his snap count was. I don't think it was incredibly high. Even Ronnie Bell got in there a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Juwan Jennings was out this week. But guys, George Kittle also wasn't targeted this. I mean, he had one target today. So it's not like I'm not too worried. Debo's going to have some big games again. But to Flav's question, I think, if you're going to say it hypothetically, that's not this year. There's no way in hell they could trade him this year, and they wouldn't. It would make the team worse.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think he's saying necessarily this year, but after this year, yeah, for sure. I get it. And there, I'm sure we'll talk about it next offseason. But I think realistically, if you look at this team, I mean, guys, this team's going to look very, very different. That's why I say Super Bowl or bust this year, not Super Bowl or bust in the sense that people are going to get fired or anything like that. But Super Bowl or bust in the sense that really this team has max 2 years where this core stays together. After the 2024 season, guys that are not going to be on this team, most likely going into the 2025 season, are guys like Kittle, Eric Armstead, CMC, Trent Williams. I mean, we're talking about blue chip players right now. Trent Williams and possibly Debo Samuel. That's 5 elite players that are making this thing run right now and will continue to do so next year. After next season, though, those 5 guys could all be gone, if not greatly diminished because of age and some other things. So it's very important that the 49ers do win a Super Bowl this year or next year if they're really going to cash in on this team as it's currently constructed. Not saying that they can't rebuild on the fly or retool or what have you, but this team is currently constructed really has got like this 2-year tight window.
And that's why I think that if you're talking about the improve on, I don't know if this the moves for I don't Super Bowl or bust is not about guys' jobs on the line, but this is why an Emmanuel Sanders signing in 2019 was essential for that team, but that was a kind of a mid-tier signing for most NFL teams, and it just ended up being more valuable for the Niners. I think this year, though, this is why, like you just said, is this year and next, and the uncertainty around a guy like Trent Williams. I think Trent Williams absolutely plays next year. I really believe that. But that being other than that, I don't know. And Trent Williams, by the way, was moving. There was a play today where they had CMC out, and he was. I don't even think Trent Williams ended up blocking anybody, but people just got out of his way.
Yeah, it's like literally, it's like you're watching a semi truck go down the highway,
right.
and you know the brakes are off, and everybody's like, "Let me just get out of the way." Like that's what's happening.
No, and then that's
time he gets on the move.
He was moving. Like he was like 4'9", 5'40" moving for a big guy. Like right, like he wasn't just lumbering down the field. So I think that concern is why. I know it's not on the agenda, but a bigger move than Emmanuel Sanders. And I think that something around the lines where I've been nitpicking about edge rusher opposite of Bosa, but boy, oh boy, this is why I would overpay and I'd figure out the rest later for a guy the caliber of Patrick Surtain. And people say, what's that going to take? I don't really care. People get so bent out of shape about the Trey Lance. I mean, and rightfully, I thought like, lighting those 3 first-round picks on fire is kind of a big deal. But in this situation, like they said, well, what's too much? The next 2 years is your goal. I'm not saying they can't win without that, beyond that. I'm not saying that. But in this league, there are some elite teams. We saw Buffalo Bills today take a hot team like the Miami Dolphins and just thrash them. Okay? Like you've seen the Philadelphia Eagles, they're a little bit regret, but they're still undefeated. They've got taken everybody's best punches, and they still keep coming out ahead. And they're figuring out their new offensive coordinator. You've got Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs with that's going to. I feel like a move for Patrick Surtain can happen. I think it's just going to take a big move, and it's going to take a lot more than they gave up for Christian McCaffrey. And I'd be interested to see what you think, if you even agree with that. Because to me, that's what allows Demo to go inside where he is the best. That's his best ability, is inside. That's where he cut his teeth at Oregon. Go Ducks.
That's right. Go Ducks. You heard it here first.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, that move for Surtain, I think, can happen. They've just got to be prepared to overpay. And I don't even know if it will be overpay. I said this. I would go a first, a third, and a future second. And I honestly don't think that's an overpay for who I think is a top 3 corner in the league. He's 23 years old. He just turned 23, I think, in July. Okay.
Well, David, we just talked about the 5 blue chip players that are likely not going to be on this team after 2 years.
Right.
I don't know what those picks would net. Maybe they bring a blue chip player back. But one thing we do know is that it brings a blue chip player in Surtain in who will be here after the 2024 season for sure and going forward, because he'll only be 24 years old.
I'll be honest with you, Jesse. I know that they need to shore up Colton McKivitz, like that's thing. And where are you going to get offensive tackles outside of the draft?
No,
I get that. Right. I get that. But are you certain you're getting that guy next year's draft? Are you certain the guy you want right there? So here's my whole thing. I say first, second, or third. Is it that crazy to say, you know what? We might have the 31st or 32nd pick in the draft. Is it that crazy to say 2 firsts for a top 3 corner in the league who's 23? Is it that crazy? I don't really think so, if that's what you have to do, because right now I feel like there are going to be some teams they play. Look, the Philadelphia Eagles today, they got their defense is getting a little bit dog walked in places they shouldn't. But that offense scares me. Okay. They're going to come into their own. They start to kind of gel with that offensive coordinator. And I'm sorry, I don't know if the corners as written right now have the answers to what they're going to be developing by the end of the year. And I know I'm going down a little bit of rabbit hole, but I don't think it's that crazy. I think a couple people are trying to manifest it and, talk it into existence a little bit. If the Niners want to do it, I think they can do it. And I don't think there's another team in the league that's a contender that actually has as much of a need, except for, who I'm going to talk about, Buffalo Bills, who just saw Tre'Davious White go down, right?
White,
So who they're going to be calling Denver. They're going to be looking at some of these teams. So it's just something to think about.
Yeah, most certainly. Flav says he's following up the Debo comment saying, I want a wide receiver with elite speed. If you can get one and keep Debo, that works too. If not, I'd sell high on Debo if I can get a speed guy. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be kind of a complete guy. I mean, I know that when we talked about Debo really before they signed him and said, well, maybe you can trade him to the Jets for Becton and Elijah Moore. Would you do that and then save the money? And you and I were both like, yeah, you throwing like a third, fourth round, or like a couple third round picks with that. Like I'm probably listening to that. But we're way past that point right now. There's not many elite receivers or teams that are going to trade you straight up for an elite receiver. So the question now becomes, going back to, you get rid of a Debo, you're likely doing it for draft picks. And what are you guaranteeing with those draft picks? Nothing. You're not guaranteeing anything. And that's what makes it really, really hard, Flav.
Yeah. And I don't know if, like you said, like they picked on Lenore there too. And I agree with what you said. I agree. I also don't think that's the issue with this offense. And I know with speed threat is an element, but like you said, you've had those guys like the Marquise Goodwins, right? The speed guys, right?
Yeah.
It has to be a complete receiver. Like a speed guy, like you say, oh, we'll keep it honest, but you know what Kyle doesn't do. Kyle's formations, he doesn't usually keep an extra, like he's going to be in the 21 personnel a lot, right? So he's not going to be you're going to have Ayuk and Debo, and that might be it, right? Like you're not going to be loading up with speed guys that are going to take the top off. And like, he doesn't need that to create space completely. And by the way, Ayuk isn't exactly chopped liver in that department either. He just ran a slower 40 than he should have because he was coming off a soft tissue injury. Anyway, yeah, but that Lenore, I'm not worried about Lenore, to be quite honest. Everybody's going to have moments like what you see. Like Trevor Ward even had a moment today where it's like, oh, he had a DPI. Like it happens, right?
Yeah.
That's why, though.
But I'd feel a lot better about Lenore playing nickel than I do on the outside, for sure.
Yes. And I think and other people will say, hey, Dave, Jesse, of course, there's going to be other teams that are in the market for Patrick Surtain too. I'm like, well, yeah, I get that. So do what you can to make it happen. The difference is a team like the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, guess what? I'm not saying the Niners aren't in contention with Brock. I love Brock's today. I get that. Josh Allen is with that team for a long time. So you're always in the Super Bowl window with one of the top two cornerbacks in the NFL. So those teams don't always feel the need necessarily to like sit here and like absolutely mortgage. I think the Niners really are in that spot where they have the luxury to do it. They now have all their picks, and that is the issue. I'm also a big Danielle Hunter fan. But the Vikings won today and the Broncos won today. So maybe they're going to try.
Here's an interesting question. Fatty Momo says, do you trade Debo now for Surtain? What if that was the trade? Hell yes. They wouldn't do it, but hell yes, I would do it.
Yeah, of course you would. But like they're not going to. No, the Broncos aren't going to trade and pay Debo Samuel.
Yeah. Dave Barclay says, what up, Jess? Overall decent, but the O-line is not allowing more time for bigger plays. We are leaving points out there, but good show out. Love BA and CMC and Purdy's numbers. More Mason, please. Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, the only time that the offense was stopped today was when McKivitz gave up a sack. So the offense is phenomenal. Like, it's doing great. It is interesting because going into this week, and I don't know what the numbers were today, I feel like they scored a touchdown on every single red zone possession that they had. I could be wrong, but I swear that's the case. Going into this week, they were ranked 20th in red zone touchdown percentage. After this week, I think they're going to move way up those charts if they did, in fact, get a touchdown every time they were in the red zone. But overall, I mean, it was a great win. It was a fantastic win. It was a win against a more gritty Arizona Cardinals team than I think what most people expected going into the season. And the 49ers did exactly what they needed to do today. It was great to watch. Absolutely.
Well, they also did the punt that the only drive they had a punt. Everything else was either a kneel out, which doesn't count, like at the end of it. It's like that.
Right.
So it was 5 touchdowns and a punt. And the punt, had 41 yards, but they also lost like 20 yards on that. So that you take that one play out, you're scoring on that drive. Right. Yeah. So like they basically were that one play away from pitching a shutout against that Arizona defense. Yeah.
Perfect. Literally perfect. Yeah.
It one incompletion, so.
Well, and that's the other thing, because the one incompletion came after the sack.
Right.
And was pressured again. So really, like, it truly would have possibly been perfection, literally perfection, had he not given up that one sack. Like, that's crazy.
And I think that's the thing. I also felt the offensive line, to be fair, Dave, is like, I actually thought, you know why that Purdy was able to connect with Ayuk on multiple times downfield was because he was throwing from a clean pocket all day long. There was a couple of times where he did his usual self, be able to kind of be the magician, step up, evade a little bit, extend the play, particularly in one where it was a short throw, but it was great where he moved to the right, allowed McCaffrey to go back over the middle and kind of throw across his body to the, pick up another first down. But it wasn't, I actually felt the offensive line played very well today. So, but the McKivitz thing is a worry. It's an ongoing worry when you have one of the worst right tackles in the league.
Yeah, most certainly. Brother Bob says next week we got Cooks, Gallup, Lamb. We got to hit Dak. Yeah, definitely. You got to hit Dak. And I think somebody said it earlier, and I wish I could remember and give him credit, but it's like, yeah, a lot of weapons over in Dallas can get kind of scary, but I don't know if I trust the guy that is putting it in their hands right now. Dak he can be shaky. We'll just say that. Dak can be shaky.
Well, I would say that. Oh, sorry, man. I was going to say, the Cowboys Pats today. Can you guess how many total yards the Cowboys had today?
Total yards?
Yeah.
418.
253. Oh, no, excuse me, 377. That came up.
Oh, okay.
But they averaged only 5.5 yards a play. Now, they were moving the ball. And the Pats, that's the thing, though. The Pats defense is not too bad,
Yeah.
I think that this is a team, though, that if you can, again, they were 8 of 15 on third down, which is pretty good today against the Pats defense.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, if the Niners can tighten that up, these teams that are just kind of more just really dink and dunking for the most play, other than that 41-yard play I think the Cardinals had today, like if they can get off the field on third down, I do believe that they're the better team. But I also believe that the Cowboys defense aren't scrubs at all, and they're going to have weapons like you mentioned. It's going to be a good game.
Yeah, for sure. Dave Barclay says, for once, I agree with Flav, and we need help deep. And then he clarifies that he meant for all year. And I agree. Dave, completely agree. I was just trying to talk about the game today. I did mention it earlier. I do agree with you overall on that. Jamaican Boy says, should Debo get CMC's touches in the second half of the season? Some of CMC's touches. Now, that's an interesting point. We talk about the redundancy. Why not spell CMC with Debo a little bit more?
I say this all the time. I don't have
an issue with that.
I have no issue with it. And it's the thing. I've said this since he signed the contract. I have no, and he's incentives. He has a lot of incentives there for that too, is with rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. Look, Debo's a wide back. And like you said, you might only have this year, next year, like that. That's what you signed Debo for, is to get as much out of him. And is he already dinged up? Yes. But the bottom line is you saw what that offense could do today without basically involving him at all. Mm-hmm. That is his bread and butter. And I don't understand why, if nobody has problems with the way CMC is being used, I don't understand why people would have a problem with Debo. Because think about it. CMC is getting way more tread on his tires. I mean, Debo's really not getting touched that much. And Debo's a bigger dude. And so, yeah, that's where I want to see it. And especially with Elijah Mitchell. Jesse talked about this before. I love Elijah Mitchell when he came out of Louisiana. He just can't stay healthy. It's not going to happen. They should have tried to trade him, and I don't think there were probably any buyers. I'm sure they probably tried. He's good enough as a backup when healthy, and he's just never healthy. So I'm all about Debo being that guy. And no disrespect to Jordan Mason, but Jordan Mason's not Debo. So, and if Debo goes down doing that stuff, I'm not saying abuse a guy, but that's why you gave him that contract, for his special ability to work at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out Jamaican Boy. That's a good comment. All right, let's go around the league real quick. What stood out for you today around the league and how it pertains to the 49ers? I've got a couple things, but I'll let you go first in the sake of maybe taking away from you.
Yeah, I'll give bulletin board material to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Eagles are a great team.
Earmuffs, Eagles, earmuffs.
Yes, I think the Eagles are a great team. I think the Niners are the better team. And I don't think obviously they're going to respect them. But there's still they put some points on the board today. There were some different circumstances because of they're still figuring things out with this new coach. Shane Steichen is gone. Jonathan Gannon is gone. This team is not they're eking out wins, and that's all that matters. And you could say the same thing. Like the Niners had some games against the Rams. They even had a little. I mean, that Giants game was 17, almost 17-14 in midway through the third quarter last week, right? Without a big dinged up team. The Cardinals, sorry guys, they're not that good of a team. They're gritty and they're competitive, and Josh Dobbs has outperformed expectations. But so I think it's fair to say, hey, Niners, wait until you play a great team. I think that's something that's I don't know if it surprised me, but the Eagles have been given a fight in pretty much every game they've played against really subpar teams.
For sure.
You know, you look at the Minnesota Vikings, the Washington Commanders, the New England Patriots.
Patriots was one. Yep.
I'm forgetting the other game. I think they had a better showing, but that's something that I'd watch. But they're still winning. I think to me the biggest thing around the league was the Cowboys' ability to respond, and I actually picked the Patriots to cover, not by much. I just thought maybe the Cowboys would win by 6. They definitely didn't do that. It was 38-3. So I think both those teams will put points on the board, and I think that's where the Niners are going to have to be. That they had 30, 30, 30, and they had 35 today. So it would be nice to not have to score 30 points a game to win. And I'm not saying they'll have to, but it does seem like the Niners are going to be able to lean on this defense to an extent, but they're probably going to want to score 27 points a game to be safe. And I think so that's what, to me, around the league, I don't think other than those two teams, though, honestly, man, you look at the NFC South, you look at Tampa and the Saints, it was a mid-off. You look at the Falcons, good God, Desmond Ridder is just abysmal right now. You look at the NFC North, the Vikings, I don't even know if they really want to win right now. They barely did against Carolina, against Bryce Young, who's really struggling as a rookie. The Bears found a way to lose. The Packers really had some box score stat stuff in late, but looked pretty bad. The Lions. So there's the Lions. The Lions are good. But like you look around the league, though, there's not. It does feel like it's boiling down to the Niners, Cowboys, and Eagles as really the cream rising to the top. So
yeah,
and we're
in the
NFC
at least. Yeah, I think my other observation would come from the AFC, and that's the Buffalo Bills for multiple reasons. Really, I mean, much like we just saw Dallas lose their number one corner. I was just telling a friend of mine. I had dinner with a friend of mine who's a Bills fan on Wednesday night, and I told him, I said, wow, it's crazy because last year Tre'Davious White was not the Tre'Davious White that you remember. This year he looked fully ready to go. He looked like himself, and in a play similar to kind of with the 49ers and Lions where they lost Verrett in the first game of the season, it was like, I mean, did he really need to be on the field? And now you lost him for the season. It looks like, I don't know if it's been confirmed, but it certainly looked like a torn Achilles, the way that he reacted. Heart and everything, and prayers go out to him. But, these are things that are happening around the league to other elite teams that in the long run, when you look back at the course of a season and you say, okay, why did X team win the Super Bowl? Well, one of those things does come down to luck, health, skill, everything all goes into this secret pot of winning a Super Bowl. And right now, knock on wood, the 49ers have been very healthy. You've got good teams around the league like the Cowboys and the Bills losing big time players so far this year for the whole season. The Jets are another one, losing Rodgers. So there's things that are happening that we have to take notice of. I think the trade deadline this year is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be super active, but at least the buildup to it might be the biggest that I can remember in a long time, because there's big time players that could be on the move. Guys like Devontae Adams, guys like Jonathan Taylor, guys like Patrick Surtain, who, if they go to a powerhouse team, Mike Evans is another one that if they go to a powerhouse team, who knows? Who knows what team that could be and how that could flip the league on its head. So I think there's a lot of interesting things happening around the league right now that certainly 49er fans need to pay attention to. But the biggest thing is the 49ers right now 4 games in, small sample size, understand all that. Look to me to be the best team in the NFL at this very moment. At this very moment, they do. And that is something that 49er fans, you all should celebrate and feel great about. Have your chest pumped out this weekend this week as you encounter fans around the league, because I don't know who can say that they're a better team than the 49ers at this point. I really don't know.
And I agree with you. And I think come short of guaranteeing, I'm not guaranteeing anything next week. I do think the Niners are the better team. I think actually the Niners, as when Dallas came into the playoffs last year, I think that Dallas poses a lot of threats. I will say this about Dak Prescott. I actually have always been in his corner more than I think a lot of Niners fans have. I don't think this Niners team fears Dak Prescott. And I don't think that I think the Niners team actually matches up well. I don't know. They should not. This game is a home game. It's going to be Sunday Night Football. The Niners will be favored. I think the Niners will win. I think the Niners are going to be 5-0 next week. And then I look ahead, but like that is going to be, it's going to be an interesting matchup. I think it's going to be a 1-possession game. I think it's going to be tight. And could it go other way? Yes. I feel like this defense, Steve Wilkes, I think is going to look back and say, okay, what do we got to do to tighten this up? Because like I said, they weren't giving up aside from that one bigger play and then a series of angry plays on back-to-back plays, but those are plays. And I said this last year, the Niners secondary had a penchant at the end of the year for giving up big plays in the secondary. And that is kind of what killed them today. And so I just don't know if you can take Demo off the outside. I just think you have to keep him there for now and see what happens.
Yeah, most certainly. Shades by Chardall says the Niners currently are favored by 3 against Dallas. I like that money line. I think I would take the 49ers in that. Not a better, but I think if I were to bet, then I would probably take the Niners in that scenario. So I like that. It's going to be great. This week is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to do Behind Enemy Lines with the Cowboy content creator. That's going to be a blast. Overall, this week, it feels like finally the season's getting going. And I do expect the 49ers to beat the Cowboys. I would be shocked if I don't pick them to win when we get to the Behind Enemy Lines show. But still, this is the first time where I feel like, okay, maybe a team can threaten the 49ers even just a little bit. Not a lot. Right. But I think it's possible here.
And right now it's early line, obviously, but right now it's a -3.5, which is actually
close to a pick 'em. Close to a pick 'em.
Well, yeah, but a -3.5, that's actually like for a team that's close. Like, I saw a lot of lines there were -1.5, 2.5, 1 for like pretty competitive teams. So I think it's clear that the sharps out there look to be the Niners to be in that better position. But and Behind Enemy Lines is an awesome show. You can't miss that one.
Yeah, I mean 3.5. The old rule was home teams got 3 points.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
no matter what, they got 3. That's not necessarily fully the case now. It depends on the team. It depends on a lot of things. But let's say that it's 2 points now that home teams get. Well, 1.5 is close to a coin toss that they're saying, which is interesting because I think the 49ers clearly look like the better team, and they don't have the major injury that Dallas has. But, we'll see how the game plays out. We'll see. I'm excited for it, though. I'm very excited for this week. I can't wait. I'm glad that the 49ers won. It feels awesome to win. Definitely going to enjoy it for a couple days, but I can't wait to get into the content where we talk about the Dallas Cowboys matchup. I hope y'all have a blessed Sunday. I'll be back on Tuesday with the doubleheader show. I got Ryan in the morning, and then I go on with Sunil at night, and then we are just kicking off the week, ready to go. David, as always, thank you for joining me. Everybody in the chat, shout out to you. Have a blessed night. Enjoy Sunday Night Football, and peace.